It's time for the unofficial 40. Soonerscoop.com's very official recruiting podcast featuring Soonerscoop.com recruiting publisher Josh McCuistion. Get your recruiting fix from the leader in Sooner recruiting. It's the unofficial 40 with your hosts, Soonerscoop.com publishers Carey Murdoch and Josh McCuistion. Eddie Press.
All right, we are back and at it, better than ever. It is the unofficial 40. Josh McCuistion, Eddie Radosevich, Carey Murdoch, all coming to you live. Well, when you're listening to this, it won't be live because it's a podcast. But we are back and at it as we've all been kind of bums lately. And I'm probably the lead bum. I think the family came in for 4th of July, stayed a few days. How does my house smell? You smell the cooking smells, Eddie, when you walked in the door?
This is 100% the cleanest I've ever seen your house. It looks good.
Well, my parents were here, so I had to throw, as you can see, I had to throw all the crap in the office.
Yeah. What closet do I need to open and everything just comes piling out of it?
There is one. Yes. There's one of those.
I've done that.
Josh has been out on vacation as well, and he is now back. Josh, welcome back.
Glad to be back. It was probably the worst vacation ever. I
Really?
Not like as in I didn't enjoy what I was doing, but like not a very sexy vacation. I have been retiling my bathroom for the better part of about 4 months and am now reaching completion, and that was a big part of last week. And then also power wash the driveway. So really a sexy vacation for Josh.
A productive one, though.
For sure. Yeah, I don't sit still very well. I don't do that so well.
Yeah, I had to take up cooking during my vacation, which I'm not afraid to say I'm pretty good at it.
It looked good, Carey. So you got into the you need to be on the Food Network uploading your pictures, but it looks strong.
I wonder if we could get like the OU staff to do like a Master Chef. Like, who do you think would be the best cook on the OU staff?
Carey cooks.
Yeah, he's been in videos barbecuing.
Yeah, he always puts out videos that he's barbecuing and stuff, and it looks. But really
I wonder
good.
if you put him in the kitchen, like when he's got to
Although I will
chop
say,
onions and garlic and.
I saw some ribs that Lincoln Riley put out.
Oh yeah, that's right. And someone on the staff that ate him said that he should be on. Or I think they tagged Bobby Flay, and they told me that they were so good he should be on MasterChef.
I could see that. I bet when you grow up in Muleshoe, you know how to barbecue a little bit.
I should ask him about barbecuing at Big 12 Media Days.
Because
we're going to have an hour to ask him about something. By the way, there should be like a heavenly light shining. Big 12 Media Days coming up on Monday. We will be down there. OU goes on Monday, so you won't have to wait around to read stupid stories about Texas and Baylor. Just your OU will be bam, right in your face. Lincoln Riley answering all the questions about are you going to destroy OU football, I'm sure.
It will be very interesting, too, just in that OU hasn't been on the first day the last couple of years. It seems like all the focus will be on OU because I think they're with who? Kansas, Tech.
That's a terrible day.
It's a really bad day. With OSU and
Iowa
Texas
State,
on Tuesday.
Kansas. Yeah, and then the bigger day for just news will probably be that Tuesday, yeah, because you have Tom Herman in there, Mike Gundy, who apparently is cut off the mullet.
So sad.
Is there photo evidence of this yet?
Yeah, I think Ryan McGee from ESPN tweeted a picture. He must have been shooting some promos or something with ESPN the last couple days because he sent out a tweet with a picture, and it definitely was cut a little bit.
Yeah, it was still there, but it was definitely trimmed. By the way, for you guys that have to be there, with the way the Stoops-Riley thing, with how quickly it happened, there was no time for national media to really get on site for that press conference. How long do you think you all will have to wade through crap that you already have asked and answered with Lincoln Riley before you guys get to a question that will actually break some new ground?
I'm going to say this though. When he's in when he's up on the dais or whatever you want to call it, the podium, when he's in the big room, it's all a bigger. This is so stupid. They're having it on the field of the Star, like inside. It's just like, just do it.
No, really?
This is just as dumb as the SEC saying they want to have their media days in Dallas in the future.
I told Carey when we were talking about it and how it's all set up this year, it's going to be one of those deals where they're going to have, you're going to see so much social media from the Big 12 with like the stage and like trying to really build it up into something that it really isn't. And, hopefully they just get the names right. Hopefully they aren't tagging Zach Crabtree with Oklahoma anymore like they did in the Big 12 first team.
Yeah,
today.
I saw that.
It's ridiculous.
To be fair, I thought Zach Crabtree should have had an OU offer way back in the day. So, hey, we want to get into that.
No, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's going to be a little bit different. It's in Frisco. It's not at the Omni. We were supposed to have a hotel. They have an Omni that they're building right next to the Star, the practice facility, the new Cowboys practice facility. But as everyone could tell you, it wasn't ready in time. I mean, you could tell that thing wasn't going to be ready 2 months ago.
So it's not just the Big 12 people. Like, it's not even open. There's nobody's staying in it.
No, I tried to book a room just to see if I could.
And they're not even accepting.
They're not even accepting reservations.
That makes sense. It makes
Although
sense that the Big 12 would move to the Frisco this year, and the hotel's not ready for them.
Yeah, it was perfect where it was. It was
really
right downtown. You could go eat anywhere you wanted.
Well, and
you could Uber anywhere you wanted to for real cheap.
Just the setup of it all.
But
too.
I mean, that part of Frisco is fantastic. I mean, they've got a Shake Shack right there.
That is true.
So, Scotty P's, one of my favorite burger joints. I even like Jake's. Jake's is pretty good.
Jake's is really good. I like Jake's.
And then In-N-Out's. Frisco has In-N-Out's too.
Jake's is usually on my OU Texas stop.
Is it?
At some point.
You go to the Uptown Jake's, they have ridiculously hot girls.
Yeah, I think that's the one that we go to, actually.
It's over there by the soccer stadium.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
No. We go to the other one. I think there's one over off of I don't remember what the street is. I just know how to get there.
Okay.
It's on a side street.
Well, that is coming up. The Big 12 announced the media all Big 12 preseason team. Baker Mayfield was the offensive player of the year. He was not guys, I don't know how you feel about this, but I don't think it's not a huge slap in the face that he wasn't unanimous when you've got another quarterback in the league like Mason Rudolph.
No, not at all.
I don't know this for a fact, but anybody in the media can vote. They send everyone a nomination list or a ballot. So I never fill mine out. I just don't. I'm one of those perfectionist guys. Like, I don't get enough time to, like, Jake Trotter would be a guy that I would trust his vote because he covers the entire Big 12 now for ESPN. So he knows the best players on each team. Like, I really would have to do a lot of research to feel comfortable submitting a ballot. But I'm sure there are people that are just like, oh, I'm going to put all the OU guys on here. I'm going to put all the OSU guys on here. So, I mean, I bet Robert Allen probably voted for Mason Rudolph. And it wouldn't be it's not a criminal vote to do that. I mean, it's not like, the Jake Ertz guy. If you voted for him, then you shouldn't be in the media. I mean, is it Jake Ertz, the quarterback at K-State?
K-State, yeah.
Yeah, or Kenny Hill. Like, if you vote for those guys, you should not be allowed to vote for that anymore.
And there probably were some people that did, just because it's like they can't bring themselves to vote for anybody else.
Or
they
Shane
just don't know.
Buechele. If you're a Texas media person, you voted for Shane Buechele, no, you shouldn't be able to vote anymore.
I think at the Big 12 Media Days, they'll actually have it all broken down, won't they? They'll send out like a thing that shows how many votes each kid got.
It seems like they do that for the team, but
and that
not
comes out tomorrow.
The players, yeah.
Thursday morning that comes out.
That we always talk about, like, this is why you kind of have to be a pro in the media. There are people out there would have been like Parnell Motley, first team corner. Did you see him in the spring game? He was amazing. Kyler Murray, second team quarterback. Did you watch him in the spring game? Like that's the stuff. Like, that's, and I don't think the Mason Rudolph thing's any slide. He's a lot better player than I think he gets credit for, especially amongst OU fans, because he's thrown out some dog games against OU. He really has.
He has.
But if you watch his body of work, he's a really, really good player. There's no question.
I look at it this way. Who's going to get drafted higher? I don't think you can sit there and say that Baker Mayfield is definitely going to be drafted higher than Mason Rudolph.
Oh, there's no question. Rudolph will go higher than Baker Mayfield. I guarantee it.
Just because of size. I mean.
Yep. I mean, yeah, it's not Baker's. Baker's a better football player. To me, there's no question.
Better college football player, yeah.
Yeah. But it's what we always talk about with, like, Josh, he ran for 2,500 yards. He's got to be a great prospect. No, being a prospect and being a player are not exactly the same thing. I know that seems counterintuitive, but it's the same thing in the guys we watch going to OU and the guys going from OU to the NFL. Being a great player is not the same thing.
Every year, Jinx has a college kid that's a D1 guy, where Tulsa Union will have another guy that probably produces more, makes more tackles, runs for more yardage, something like that. And everybody will say, well, why isn't he as highly recruited? Because it's just hard to explain that people have ceilings. And other people have higher ceilings. It's just the way evaluating football players works. You don't spend millions of dollars on a Honda that is souped up that can I like Street Outlaws, but the Asian's little Beetle that beats all the cars is not worth $1 million, even though it outperforms Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Chargers and all that. I mean, it beats everything. But his car is not worth more than those cars he's beating.
That's a fantastic analogy.
Do you watch Street Outlaws?
I watch it every once in a while, and it's mostly just because I want to know how many of those guys are either A on the board, because I have to think that there's at least one.
I've never really shared my Street Outlaws love on the board.
It's interesting. And it's just funny that...
And it's weird because, P. Ryan's appeared in episodes. And he's like a
Has
real...
he really?
Oh, yeah. He's been in an episode. He came out... Asian called out this local tuning shop. I don't know who they were. And so they come out there, and they never mention him by name, but Samaje Perine piles out of the back seat.
That's hilarious.
And they don't ever say his name, and they don't say, "Oh, this is Samaje Perine."
Yeah.
He's just standing there, like you wouldn't if you didn't know who Samaje Perine was. You just think it was some black dude that was with some really huge black dude that was with them.
That's really funny. I probably would watch any show that has Oklahoma City in it, just because I like watching. I was like, oh yeah, I
will admit I've watched some of the
Sweet Home
Housewives.
Oklahoma. Yeah. I know the people.
You know those people.
Yeah. I can't say that I'm friends with them or anything.
Oh, okay.
They are.
Everybody.
They're friends
Eddie.
with friends.
Eddie knows everybody.
And I've watched it. I have watched it.
Eddie's that rare extrovert that still hates everyone.
Eddie has backdoored his way into Paul George's press conference tonight.
Yep, I'm gonna wear the Okie tux, jeans, boots, and a blazer. We're gonna go mix it up with the rich people tonight.
I've seen the Okie tux a lot.
You got to bring it out.
Usually in New Orleans.
Special events. New Year's, New Orleans, absolutely.
Friday
Strong
night,
move,
OU
Eddie.
Texas.
Friday night,
one
OU
of my
Texas.
favorites.
It's a
very
good look.
strong.
I'm not going to lie.
Very strong.
You pull it off well.
It's going to be very hot tonight, though.
Did you get a new Sam Bradford hat?
No, this is
year?
from the Fields and Futures tournament I played in. I did play in Sam's tournament on Monday, though.
And you saw Bob?
Bob was there. He was alive and well. He got I think his team got second. They beat my team by 2 strokes.
You would have cheated more if you only needed to.
We played so well. We were 18 under going into 17, and out at Oak Tree National, I would take that every day of the week. And they won. He's obviously been playing a lot of golf, though. He looked good off the tee.
And he's had something funny to tell you?
Yeah, they won. He won a trophy and everything, and I mentioned to him as I was double fisting club specials. I said, "You're taking all the hardware home, Bob," and he said, "They told me I was done winning trophies." I said, "Touche," and I went back out and played another 9.
Well, good times. Good for you.
Yeah, it was fun.
Eddie's been able to do some golfing. I've been able to cook. Josh has been able to tile. So, unfortunately, it's time to get back to work, and it all starts on Monday.
You know what would be really funny is if somebody at Big 12 Media Days just acts like Bob Stoops is still the head coach. And with Bob not here, how do you foresee taking over the team this year? And once he gets back to coaching at the end of his suspension,
do it like this is some secret black ops,
like he's an interim or something, like he's an interim coach, or even just refer to him as Bob. Don't even act like you know who Bob Stoops is,
or just call him interim Coach Riley.
How does it feel taking over for Bob for the first 4 games? And do you expect him back with Amani Bledsoe?
Oh, God, yeah, we've got to find out about Amani Bledsoe, don't we? Or people are going to die.
I'm trying to think of what the big thing has been the last couple years, but it has taken the place of that. Maybe Riley, is he going to run the ball with P. Ryan and Mixon? That's what this has turned into.
I know that Calvin Thibodeau said something about, him coming back earlier. but no one officially has. I think what they believe is that he's going to be able to, but it's not official yet.
And I think the biggest part about it, the misconception or just the confusion about it, has been the fact that OU never officially publicly said anything about it, and they were so guarded on it.
Well, that's going to be what's interesting about Riley is
how
he's
handles
gotten
all
on
this stuff.
top of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
just like the Will Sunderland stuff.
Yeah.
And it was the who was it that they wanted? They contacted me to say, hey, make sure you get this out there that this kid's no longer on the team. Who was that?
Dahu Green.
Yeah, Dahu Green, yeah. And all I kept thinking is, oh, crap. I gotta go check the police blotter now.
I don't think his name ever came up or anything. That was just an odd. That was the first. That was like a day after they officially, or 2 days after Riley officially
took
had been
over.
named the head coach. And
Yeah, they didn't want another Parrish Cobb thing blowing up in their face.
Yeah, but I don't think anything ever came out on that, did it?
No.
I mean, I really don't know if he ever got in trouble or anything. So
No.
it was just more of a housekeeping deal.
Yeah. Okay, so Big 12 team announced today. You had Baker. Obviously, Baker's going to be first team. Orlando Brown was a unanimous selection. Mark Andrews was on there as a tight end. And then, I'll be honest, I expected to see at least one more name on defense. But, by the way, before I mention that, Ray Guy Award watch list came out. Eddie, you want to give us the news on that?
Austin Seibert.
Oh, you said it right.
Austin Seibert, congratulations on becoming a Ray Guy watch list.
Yes.
It's like if you participate in a sport in your position and you're not on a watch list right now, you've done something really bad.
Yeah, they're really extensive. But on defense, Obo Okoronkwo, he makes the list. He should make the list. I imagine he probably got a number of votes for Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. And then who am I? Oh, Jordan Thomas is the other one. So no Stephen Parker, which he is not a guy that really has been embraced by either the coaches or the media. I think he was even honorable mention last year, postseason.
I think that's right.
Which shocked me a little bit.
Yeah,
But West Virginia has really good safeties. TCU's got good safeties. Apparently, Kansas has the best linebacker
defensive lineman.
or defensive lineman.
Dorrance Armstrong. He's the guy that you've talked about a little bit, Josh, and that he was the guy that was recruited by Calvin Thibodeau, or he at least kind of identified him, and then they made a move on him to offer him and then get him into Lawrence. Right? I think so.
Yeah. He's a kid out of Houston Westfield. Not Westfield, North Shore. North Shore, same school as Caleb on Shoshone. But, I mean, a guy that, he had some decent offers, but Kansas really went after him hard. And, he's one of those guys that Thibodeau only got to coach for that 1 year at Kansas, but you have to give him credit because, he's an NFL guy, and you don't say that very often at Kansas. So, look, you guys talked about Stephen Parker, and I know I think I've been tougher on him maybe than he, but I don't think he had a great year last year. I really expected him to go to a different level. Now, I know he was hurt, so that definitely plays a role in it, but
That
what
secondary was a mess. It was
Yeah.
a disaster. They didn't have an interception until the fourth game of the season, which was Stephen Parker that made the first interception last year.
And what moment of last year do you think of with Stephen Parker? You were like, that's, you can think to his sophomore year, the TCU play. That's an incredible play. Really kind of put him on as a big-time Big 12 player. But last year, what moment of Stephen Parker's really stands out to you?
He was solid. That's about the best you could say for him.
Yeah. Which, it's the Big 12 and DBs are.
He's way up on the list in tackles, which you should be for a safety. Jordan Thomas had 17 pass breakups last year, which makes me wonder, was that the first year that OU has ever really paid attention and tracked pass breakups correctly? Because it was so many. And Stephen Parker, what's really strange is, with everything that's going on with Will Sunderland, they won't move Stephen Parker. They are hell-bent on keeping Stephen Parker where he is. They don't want to move him. I guess they just feel like it'll screw up the defense, or they won't be as good on defense if he's not where he is. So what I'm saying is they obviously value him greatly to not even want to rearrange things.
Oh, sure. I mean, he's one of the few guys in that secondary that provides them any consistency. For everything that Jordan Thomas can be, Stephen Parker is they are the exact opposite players. Jordan Thomas had one of the best first halves you'll ever see against Texas as a corner, and then had one of the worst second halves you'll ever see. Like, I can't always put him together as a player. It doesn't make any sense how different he can be from series to series and snap to snap.
I almost put part of that. I mean, the fact that Shane Buechele is throwing balls 50 yards downfield in one-on-ones over and over and over again. I mean, that's the one thing I can say about Shane Buechele. He throws a hell of a deep ball. Like, he might be the best deep ball thrower in the conference. But that's really all he can do. So I don't understand how he's going to run Tom Herman's offense.
Oh, that's, people think like, you're down on Herman. I think Herman can coach. But when you look at that schedule and you look at the quarterbacks he's had that best run his offense, they are completely opposite of Shane Buechele. It doesn't make any sense at all. So I think 7-5 is hopeful for Texas.
I would agree. And they lead the league in all Big 12 selections.
Gosh, I didn't even realize that.
They have 3 on defense, and 2 of them are their entire defensive tackles. Here's the real question.
No, because Michael Dixon's punter.
As a punter. Here's the real question. Is Malik Jefferson the most overrated player in the league? Because as much as he was just a complete stud in high school, he's even been benched.
I'd say he had a better freshman year than in sophomore year.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
That's exactly. I thought as a freshman he was right where he was supposed to be. He was on the right trajectory. And then as a sophomore, I don't know what happened. I mean, but it was. You're right. He got benched. I mean, he was bad. But I mean, Malik's kind of like Caleb Kelly. Like, if you're going to ask me, I'm gonna bet on Malik. Like, that dude has a ton of talent. And you look at the linebacking group in the Big 12, and I'll go with Malik Jefferson. But you're right. Like, so far, it's not lived up. It'd be like if Caleb Kelly went out this year and had about 45 tackles, got benched, and I had almost, no sacks, just was kind of a non-factor. It wouldn't make any sense, and that's where Malik was last year. He's gonna have to figure it out this year, because I'm sure he's a guy that's thinking about going pro after this year if things go right with all the hype and buzz that surrounds him.
Pretty wild. He had 61 tackles as a freshman. He had 62 tackles as a sophomore.
As a middle linebacker, you should have 90 to 100.
It's it'll be interesting too if you want to relate this back to OU, just how far as Caleb Kelly. I mean, how do you stay away from having almost a sophomore slump? I mean, is that what we want to call it for Malik Jefferson?
I was talking to somebody the other day about what OU was going to do with Caleb Kelly, and really Obo Okoronkwo too, just because it's very confusing where people play right now, and they're going to have to do something to try and keep Caleb Kelly on the field in 3rd and long situations, and he's not going to be able to stay at that will spot when it's 3rd and long. You're going to have to drill him down onto the defensive line. That's my assumption, because I just don't think. I mean, you're better as a defense. It's obvious from the way last year finished. You're better as a defense with Caleb Kelly on the field, markedly better. But to have to take him off the field in 3rd down, that's just disastrous. So whether he has a sophomore slump or not, I think it really depends on, can he be a down lineman on 3rd down? Can he be a pass rusher? I don't know if he can.
I think he can. I think he has the ability to, but it's. I think it's right a lot easier than saying it.
Right now, I don't think that he's a better option than DJ Ward on that right edge.
If you had to give me the 2 options, I might go with Caleb Kelly, but that's a pretty blind assumption, just in that you don't really know what to expect with Caleb Kelly.
I liked what I saw out of DJ Ward in the spring, other than having to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
That was my Eddie moment.
His deal is just kind of keeping himself healthy, I think. I mean, DJ Ward for the last, almost going back to high school, it's always been something or another.
The
I mean,
Predator
whether it be,
proves it, man. Once you have that spleen removed, it's hard to come back from it.
Is that what it is?
No, I think the Predator actually ripped out the spine.
Ooh. You can play with that.
That would be tough to come back from.
Yeah.
He'd just playing spineless.
Literally an amoeba defense.
Wow.
But
yeah.
Now, my problem with the Ward thing is like 2 years ago, DJ Ward, as a 4-3 defensive end, he makes sense, but they jacked him up so he could play in that 3-man front. I mean, not like I don't mean like they messed him up. I just mean like they got him so big.
He's a big dude.
I don't know that he's that explosive edge rusher that you need in that 4-3, especially in a third down situation where you want him lining up at least as a 7. He's going to be real wide and trying to come off the corner. Is that DJ's game anymore? I mean, maybe he can get back to being that guy, but his body will have fluctuated a lot in a couple of years.
Is DJ Ward the new Dakota Austin?
How so?
Like the guy that you've just penciled in as your starter that may not be able to do it?
Just because a lack of everybody
else.
else.
Might just kill your defense?
I think you can pick on a cornerback a lot more than you can pick on somebody inside, right?
Yeah, DJ will be solid against the run. Like he's not going to like kill you, but he's not going to be a playmaker. Dakota Austin, like that, the opposing offense was going to put their playmaker opposite of him and let bad things happen to your defense. Like DJ Ward, like they're not going to take advantage of him. They're not going to roll to him. I mean, he's a solid college football player. Dakota Austin, he's always been a nice kid, but that was just a bad situation just waiting to happen last year.
Hindsight's always 20/20, but when you look back at a kid's excellent performances and they come against Kansas and Iowa State, maybe that's the reality check that was needed.
It was Texas Tech that he played well.
Was it Tech that he played well?
Because it was, I think Sanchez turned his ankle like the first play of the game.
Yeah.
He came in. I think he had a pick in the end zone in that game.
Well, that's Tech. That's Tech for you.
That quarterback was drafted number 10.
I talked about it in some of the Monday morning stuff that year after those games. I would like, if you go back and look, he had some moments, but he also had some moments where he got beaten and the other team, I can't remember which game it was that really sticks out, but I remember going over and over and over it with the tape. It was clear he'd been beaten and the quarterback just didn't see the receiver.
Yeah.
Like it was one of those things where, okay, it all looks great on the stat line, but the bottom line is there were some real problems there that a good quarterback would have taken advantage of.
Well, and that's the thing in the Big 12. You've seen it. Like Baylor did that to everybody. Like if they found a weakness, they exploited it. I mean, remember the Julian Wilson deal? Just exploited that down the field. OU's done. I mean, everybody does it. I mean, James Washington does it. And Mason Rudolph, they do it to teams. If they find a guy that can't cover, they will wear out throwing the ball in his direction. That's everybody across the league. And really, everybody stopped and took a look at all that same film and said, we're going after this Dakota Austin guy. And they did. And when the spotlight was there, nobody. That's why I was always worried, okay, well, when's Jordan Parker going to flame out? Because people are going to stop and realize all of a sudden that going in Jordan Thomas's direction doesn't do you any good. But it never really happened. He'd get challenged, and he'd stand up to the challenge.
Is there a more forgotten guy on that starting defense than Jordan Parker? Like, I feel like it's all Parnell Motley all the time, and I get it. I mean, he looked great in the spring, but he played really well for a true freshman in a bad spot last year.
No, he was fantastic. It
will be very interesting. I think that's probably one of the more underlying, I guess, storylines going into the actual season is, I think a lot of people do have Parnell Motley circled in at that cornerback spot just because of the spring, and they do forget about Jordan Parker. I would say Jordan Parker's the starter, right?
Oh, yeah.
No doubt about it.
I don't have any doubts. I mean,
I think a lot of people, though,
forgot because he was hurt. I mean,
right.
What was that? Fractured his...
it was his...
like his heel or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was... I forgot what it's called... because they had another
or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. He was around on crutches all
on
all
his
spring,
scooter.
and then on a scooter, and then on one of the boots.
Okay, so Big 12 Media Day is coming up. Lincoln Riley's back in the offices, back to the Twitter game. Dead period is over. I know Josh is wanting to punch somebody right now, probably. So let's just get into it. Any commitments you feel? Is there anything building toward another kind of week like the one before the dead period ended?
Well, if there was, you'd almost be done. I mean, that's the kind of crazy thing. That run was just so unbelievable. But I do think it's still, and it's the same guy we were talking about going into the dead period, Jaquaylin Crawford from Rockdale. I finally had a chance to talk with him, went to the Texas State 7-on-7, and I don't think there's any question that Oklahoma's going to be the choice here. It's just a matter of when he announces. I've even talked to someone today that would told me it would be this week. So we'll kind of see how that goes, because it's been imminent several times, and then it didn't actually end up happening. So we'll see where that goes. But I think he's definitely the guy to watch. When I had a chance to see him, for those that don't know, kind of a wide receiver corner type from Central Texas. And Crawford is a really explosive guy. On tape, you see it. I mean, he's a 10-5, 100-meter kind of guy. But the thing that surprised me, he's a lot bigger than I expected him to be. I thought he was going to be in that 5'9", 5'10", real slot kind of guy range. He's more like 5'11" and some change. I mean, he'd stand up next to Sterling Shepard with no problem. So I think that kind of paints a picture for you. And he's a guy that Lincoln Riley has put a lot of time into. He's clearly a guy that OU wants badly. And I think they'll land a commitment now. He's a guy that has a lot of Texas people around him. I think you'll have to kind of see what happens with UT if they, decide that they can take him at receiver. Right now, they want him at DB. So if that doesn't change, I think Oklahoma will be fine. But if they decide we want to recruit you as a wide receiver and we're going to take you as a wide receiver, then things might get a little interesting kind of down the stretch, because Rockdale, it's just not that far from Austin. And like I said, a lot of his family has a lot of Texas connections.
I mean, what is interesting, like I said, we talked about Texas not really knowing how they're going to work. If they do have a 7-5 type season and A&M continues to struggle, is there a possibility that OU is ready to find some type of a renaissance in Texas that maybe we've never seen, other than little glimpses of getting a Tommy Harris here and there and Adrian Peterson?
I think there's a chance, but it's more about the circumstances at other places than I think OU is so well placed to do something. Because when you look at Oklahoma's staff, it's not a group that is just entrenched in Texas recruiting, and like Dennis Simmons got a lot of California ties. I mean, it's not that they don't have connections to Texas. OU's not stupid. They've got plenty of guys on staff that know the state. But it's not like a bunch of Texas guys that are just, that's what they're known for, is going into Dallas and getting recruiting wins, or Houston or East Texas or wherever you want to talk about. So I don't know that it's going to be that, but yeah, you're right. I mean, A&M is going to be, in all likelihood, going to be in upheaval in 5 months' time. I mean, I think we can all kind of see that coming. With Texas, all these promises you're making are great in the summer, but when USC, when they meet USC and Sam Darnold drops 400 on them, like that's gonna be bad. I don't see any way that doesn't go really badly for Texas.
By the way, Sam Darnold might be your unathletic head champion. He's the total exception to the rule.
Yeah. It would have been sweet. Did you guys see the video of him on the boat throwing the pass to the guy on the wakeboard or whatever?
Yes.
He would be complete exception if he would have been the dude making the catch. He needed to make the catch to really sell me.
Those are underlying sneaky best parts of summer. That has become it, I think.
That's the part of summer that we're too old to enjoy now.
I'd go to the lake.
Shirt off?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Why not?
I'm much older than Eddie, and I have no shame in that.
I mean, I started a
I haven't-
Natties for Patty campaign. I have to go to a lake at some point.
I don't think I've had my shirt off in public in 25 years.
25 years?
Yeah.
I'd do it.
I have a daughter that loves to swim. I don't have any choice in this matter. That's just something I got to get my mind around and go do it.
Actually, I can remember being in a pool now that you mentioned that.
Yep.
About 10 years ago. I could still do flips off the backboard.
Right now?
Then I could. I don't know
Oh.
about now. I probably need a little bit more weight room work before I'd feel confident.
If there's a will, there's a way. And there's always liquid courage that can inhibit your decision-making process.
We're looking at you, Natural Light.
We need a Sooner Scoop pool party sponsor, and just let us know.
I bet
Slide in
we
my
could pull it
DMs.
off. I don't know. I'd be pretty pervy to go to hold a Sooner Scoop pool party, though.
No, it'd be pervy to hold a Sooner Scoop car wash like they do, like on Northwest Expressway. Get a bunch of high school girls to.
Yeah, that's pervy.
Well, we could
But
make it
that's for
super
their-
anti-pervy and do the dodgeball version.
What's that?
Us actually being the car wash people.
I think I could tie my shirt up into like a little bow.
Yeah, I'm not looking to wash anybody's cars.
Okay, so back on track with recruiting. Here's what I'm wondering: like, you've already identified your 2020 quarterbacks that you're going after, at least a number of them. Would you, if you're Lincoln Riley, would it be smart just to kind of keep dating there? Do you really want a commitment from a 2020 quarterback at this point?
I wouldn't think so. I think that's exactly right, Carey. I think you want to wait, kind of see what happens. Because, I mean, it's not even just about, okay, well, we got to decide who we like of those guys. There's some kid that they've never heard of yet that's going to be a star. I mean, that's just the way that goes.
Backup at a big school that doesn't have any film.
Yeah, like, for example, I know, we talked about seeing Trevor Lawrence at the 5-star. I know coming out of the opening last week, there were some people talking about Justin Fields, a fellow Georgia quarterback, being now ahead of Trevor Lawrence, who has won 2 state titles, lost 1 game his entire high school career, is kind of Mr. Everything. And now there's people saying, well, maybe the other kid's better. And I mean, that's just kind of the example, because there's always somebody that you didn't see coming that emerges late, especially at quarterback, where there's such a mental side to the game that I think sometimes can overcome, well, maybe that guy's not 6'5", he's 6'2" or whatever. So I think they're more than happy to be patient, kind of see what plays out. I don't think there's any question if I was going to peg the guy of their current offers that they're likely to land, it's the Drew Sanders kid that actually just transferred from Lake Dallas to Colleyville Heritage, which Lake Dallas, home of Dusty Dvorak, Colleyville Heritage, the home of former quarterback signee Cody Thomas.
What's the Tebow Cody Thomas home run count?
The last I checked, it was, I think as of last week, it was 14-3 or 14-4 maybe.
He hit one when he got called up.
Yeah, so I think that was the 4th one, and he's on a current 9-game hitting streak. Tebow is in high A.
Is he really?
Yeah. I
Well,
believe
he and
it's
Cody
14-4.
Thomas would probably play against each other at some point, wouldn't they?
They might, and if they do, I might be making a road trip to Great Lakes, Minnesota or Wisconsin. Sit front row for that. Heckle,
Make some signs.
heckle Tim Tebow for 9 innings.
Tim's old enough to be, the dad of half those guys in high A. So
he's no spring chicken.
it's like beer softball for him out there.
How many years has Sam been in the NFL now?
8.
Wow.
I think 8. I think the biggest number that we need to find out about Tim Tebow is how many players he saved while playing minor league baseball.
It's not cool, Eddie.
That's a personal.
I'm Southern Baptist.
Well,
I know you're Catholic.
Let's see how many people he's dipped into the holy waters.
I know you don't understand our ways. Us Protestants. It's nothing to make fun of, Eddie. Disappointed in
going
you.
to hell.
Well,
Eddie, that was already happening.
you can
buddy.
just confess and it'll all be wiped away.
I know. That's what I'm going to go do next Wednesday. Won't make it this week.
How often do you go to confession?
I don't think I've been in confession for 39 years, probably. 8 years. 10 years.
So Natty's for Patty is...
There's nothing to be confessed there.
Yeah, because you can drink all you want, right? If you're
Yeah.
Catholic, that's not a sin.
No, not at all.
Is that one of your favorite aspects of the religion, Eddie?
Yeah, probably.
I don't think we can't talk religion. I don't even know. Like I'm never going to go to one of these Six Flags Over Jesus churches that are in these shopping malls and stuff. So I don't know what is allowed or not allowed in modern day.
Oh,
churches.
like the
like.
I have a buddy that lives in Houston. He lives right next to the Summit where Joel Osteen does his thing. Just very, very weird to me. It's a personal thing. I just think it's very weird.
The non-denominational stuff.
Yeah.
I like that Crossings Church in Oklahoma City.
Yeah. I did some stuff. I didn't go, but like we had youth group and stuff growing up.
That place is kind of like
more to just appease people's parents.
For those of you, this is more of a discussion. This isn't a discussion about religion as much as it is about just growing up and going to church in Oklahoma and not being Catholic. Well, there weren't Catholics really in Southwest Oklahoma. There were, but they were usually Spanish. I don't know, Mexican. They were Latino. A lot of Latino Catholics in Southwest Oklahoma.
They at the church that I go to, that my parents go to, they have a Mexican mass on Saturday nights.
So, but I was always down because that's where the dances were, because the Baptists couldn't have dances.
Yeah, that's true.
It was not allowed.
It's very true.
But, no, it's like when I go to the Crossings Church, I feel kind of like it's old school church that is kind of doing the Six Flags of Jesus a little bit. Like they got the monitors everywhere.
That's your biggest red flag. If you go into a church and you see more than 6 big screens and a full band, it's like, I know what you guys are doing here.
And you've always got the guys that are in the band that you could tell couldn't get in a real band.
So they just play the church band?
Yes.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
So they just look like, nah. It's a little bit like... I imagine it's a little bit like being in a fraternity. Like there's certain guys that try to get into a fraternity, but they just can't.
We call those people GDIs.
Yeah, GDIs. Well, they call themselves
I guess,
GDIs too.
Yeah,
if you do it out of derision, they do it out of...
Yeah, it is kind of a two-way street, isn't it? Yeah, I know exactly the type of guy that you're talking about, that just his main goal in life is to learn every Sonic Flood song that's possible.
He's still cranking Audio Adrenaline. Did they become like Menudo? Because I didn't keep up. Did they just start changing the members of Audio Adrenaline?
I'm sure they did. I will say, though, I have been to a Michael W. Smith concert at Crossings Church.
I had some Michael W. Smith albums back in the day.
If you grew up in Oklahoma City, is my age, 30, 28, 27, 30, 31, there's a 100% chance that you probably went to a Michael W. Smith concert with FCA.
Yeah. Who is that? There was another guy, Al Denson. Is that right? Sounds right.
I don't know.
Might be a few letters off or something. This is the weirdest podcast discussion that we've ever had.
Josh, I will ask you one thing. Talking about the 2020, 2019, is this maybe the biggest difference? And I know it's kind of old, not old school, but just kind of repetitive to keep talking about the difference between Lincoln Riley era, even though he hasn't played a game, in the Bob Stoops era, but just the focus on being able to go after 2020 kids, actively recruiting 2019 while they're still working on 2018. Is that one of the bigger differences that you've seen here as the dead period has kind of restarted?
I think that's fair, and Carey can back me up on that. You would always hear for years, we don't want to recruit the next guys because we don't want to run off the current guys. And now there is none of that. And I don't think it's revolutionary within college football, but it's just kind of coming to terms with what today's recruiting is, what commitments are. We've got this 2018 guy. We don't want to spook him. You know what? He's going to get spooked anyway. That guy's probably going to take a visit or two. It's just the reality of what it is. So Oklahoma is just going to play it kind of like a house of cards and keep moving pieces and keep recruiting I mean, there are people. Somebody asked me the other day, is there a chance that Oklahoma could be done with their offensive line recruiting by, August? And yeah, there's a good chance, but I guarantee you that Bill Bedenbaugh will continue to talk to 5 other offensive linemen because he knows stuff can change, stuff will move around. And that's why I think it used to just be a few guys on the staff I thought did a very good job of always having kind of the next card ready to play. And I think now you're seeing the whole staff kind of embracing that and just saying, we're going to recruit the best players in every class. And if we can find a guy that's better, then we'll move some parts around and make that work, and just kind of letting it work out where it will. Because, like last year, I thought Oklahoma took probably one more defensive lineman than they should have just to kind of fill bodies. And now this year, they look like they're in good shape with several guys that are better players, and they can't take several of them because they got so worried about, well, we gotta have some bodies. We said we were going to get 4 in this class, so we got to have 4. It didn't make sense to me then, and I think now you're starting to see, well, we're going to strike while the iron's hot at whatever position we can take players at.
Well, you just start processing people.
I don't have any soul about that kind. I mean, it sucks for the players, it does, but I never understand why you'd want to stay somewhere you're never going to play anyway. We talked about this with PJ and Bonasaur for 2 years. Like, he was never going to play.
Like we were surprised we were surprised that he stuck around as long as he did. Like, I remember Eddie and I would have discussions in the car about it. Like, why is he still here?
Like see him at spring practice, be like, is that Pete? What are you still doing here, man?
Go somewhere where you can play. You're not going to play here.
Like, I feel like I would know when I'm not wanted.
It's not. Yeah, I think it's not just about like, oh, he's not playing yet. Every freshman that doesn't play should leave. There's a difference when you are competing for a job and, man, it's just not going to work out here. You're never – either you don't fit what we want to do, or you're not quite on the level we thought you were, or you don't fit our ideals. Whatever it is, you don't fit in here. You're not going to be the right place. Go to somewhere that is. Why would you just sit the bench for 4 years? I don't know. I guess to me that says something about competitive level. Like, you're never going to crest that mountain. Does it matter to you? If it doesn't, then what are you doing here anyway?
Yeah. Well, and like with Mbanasaur, you're like, okay, they cannot find a player to play a position on the field, and you don't even get a shot.
They are literally running out of people and moving people positions.
They moved a guy from receiver because they couldn't find anybody to play corner, and you're still not in the discussion.
They started a freshman that came onto campus 2 months late.
And had a heart problem.
Had a heart procedure.
No. I'm talking about Parrish Cobb.
Oh, that's true too.
Oh, yeah.
He might have had a heart procedure too, but that was just because it was a bad heart.
That's just lack of soul.
Okay, lack of soul. Yeah, that's good.
I'm trying to think of, is it really soul? Just lack of morals, more or less.
There hasn't been any felony breaking and enterings.
By the way, you need to watch if you haven't yet. Are you guys watching the Defiant ones on HBO?
I've seen very good stuff about it.
I watched all 4 episodes now,
and
I almost said F. It's fantastic.
Really good.
It's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen.
So it's a documentary?
Yeah, it's a 4-part documentary. It chronicles, basically starts out with Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine selling beats to Apple, and then it goes back and retraces both of their histories. And like a lot of people saw Straight Outta Compton, and that I think everybody I know that watched that movie love that movie. But it kind of goes into after Dre tells what's his name?
Eazy-E.
No. After Dre tells Bodyguard, why can't I remember his damn name? Killed the guy with his truck.
Suge Knight.
Suge Knight. After he tells Suge Knight he's going to start Aftermath Records, it kind of picks up from there and talks about starting after. But it goes through the whole NWA and what happened with Eazy and Jerry Heller and all that stuff. but then it goes into how he was really sucking at Aftermath until he found Eminem, and then it just started blowing up, and then everything he touched turned to gold.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Iovine kind of had a very similar path as a producer, and Bruce Springsteen was kind of his guy that he helped him break it. But it's just fantastic. I mean, it's really
I'm gonna check
good.
it out. I need to check it out.
Yeah, I'm with you, Carey. I thought the parallels between their two careers were really, really interesting to kind of watch, and they did an awesome job of. They didn't it didn't work on a timeline, but the storylines connected. Like, okay, this is where Dre is, this is where Jimmy is, and it kind of made sense.
And it's just in the music mogul. I mean, the whole it goes through the whole CD dying, digital age, and all that stuff. So, and the beats, how it started and how they developed it. And
For some just really strange reason, I got into a Scott Storch rabbit hole the other night.
Scott Storch.
Do you know who that is?
No, it doesn't ring a bell.
I guess he's the guy that is like responsible for all of the piano rhythms. Would that be the best way to put it? Like
in hip hop?
Yes, and like all these Dr. Dre songs. Like as soon as you start hearing it, you're like, holy shit! That I did not know that. And needless to say, I think he's a coke addict and lost like $60 million. And I don't think he's doing too well, but it was interesting.
Scott
nonetheless.
Storch.
Yes, Scott Storch.
Is he a white dude or a black dude?
He's a white guy, and that's what interested me so much. I was like, who is this guy? And why is he taking
really interesting.
pictures with all these people?
So was he taking his piano stuff from his albums, or was he writing it for?
He wrote all of this stuff.
Okay.
Storch. Scott Storch is his name. I'll show you a picture of him. Be like, yeah, that guy makes music. Probably smokes a ton of weed.
I'd say that guy does hard drugs.
Yes. But as soon as you just Google his name.
Like he looks like that's that guy. Like he's kind of put together. He's trying to wear fancy clothes and stuff and get his hair but you can tell that is a heroin addict.
He probably has a closet full of FUBU stuff. I would say that. And as a white guy, not very many white people own FUBU, I wouldn't think.
As a white guy. Did you say as a white guy?
Yeah. I just don't see
that you're a white guy.
I don't see too many white guys owning FUBU stuff, which I have seen some rumblings that might be coming back, and I support it. I'll get a shirt.
Let me ask you, Josh, what is your most embarrassing fashion statement of your life?
Oh, man.
What were you into where you just like, I can't believe I did that?
Probably, yeah. I don't think there's any question. I had to think about it for a second. But for those of us who lived through the late 90s, we know the large baggy jeans became a very big thing.
Yeah, everybody wore those.
Yeah, I'm not too proud to say I own several pairs of Jinkos that were the extra. Like the pants that you weren't even it was so cool to sag in the late 90s, and I thought it was stupid, so I didn't sag. But my jeans were so enormous, like it kind of looked like I was anyways. They just look like denim drapes.
Was that,
I don't even know how else to describe it.
Was that was probably around the era when metal detectors were being installed in Oklahoma City public schools. Those exact jeans probably got outlawed at some point in the Putnam City School District.
I'm going to bet you're right. What's funny, I'm sure we could all talk about our most embarrassing thing like that. There's a guy that I associate with Jinkos. It's a guy I went to high school with. When I think of a Jinko, I'm like, that dude probably had 12 pairs. He loved them. And he's now a bartender in Oklahoma City. He's a guy that I would call a friend. I know him. But I think about it, I'm like, you wore that crap, and that's who you associate. That should have been the clear red flag. Don't wear that. If that's who you think of when you think of that kind of clothing, just don't do that. And I wasn't smart enough to listen to my much older self.
I would say that the Jinkos, I remember crying because my mom wouldn't go buy them for me. Because my older cousins had them. I thought they were awesome. But looking back on it now, I would definitely say that Jinkos are part of the school shooter starter pack.
Were those? Did you have to go to the Buckle to get those?
The Buckle, yes, that was the Buckle, and I remember, I vividly remember
called the King's Court or something like that, or
I don't know. I do remember the Buckle though, and I remember exactly where it is in Quail Springs. And I haven't been in Quail Springs in like 15 years probably.
We had to go to Lawton to go to the Buckle.
Yeah. Oh, they had one in Lawton?
Oh yeah, at the mall.
Really?
Although it started out the Buckle Belt, and then they just decided we're going to get more hip. We're just going to call ourselves the Buckle.
Where is the mall in Lawton? I've been to Lawton at least 40 times, and I knew of no mall.
I couldn't even tell you how to get there.
Okay. Is it by Cameron?
It's not by Cameron.
Okay.
And I went to Cameron for a summer.
It's in a shopping center there, isn't it? Is it kind of by
mall.
like the...
I mean, it's an indoor mall.
It's a real mall? Lawton
it's
has a real mall?
Yeah. It's about like Sooner Mall.
Okay.
But it
Do they have an Auntie Aunts?
I don't think those
That's
were
what
out when I was
qualifies
a
a
little
real mall.
kid. But they had a Toys R Us. And actually, there was a second toy store that were in malls when I was growing up. And I can't remember the name of it now. That's going to drive me crazy. But there was not a Toys R Us. Whatever toy store was in the mall, that was the main. It wasn't Toys R Us. It was a big chain, though. I'm sure it's dead now. But yeah, I mean, it had Sears, and I think it had a Dillard's.
Okay.
I mean, it was legit.
Did it have a Montgomery Ward's?
Yes. Back in the day, yes.
That's the oldest place I could think of.
Duncan had a Montgomery Ward's.
Oh, did they really?
At the Duncan has a mall. The God, I've killed too many brain cells in my lifetime. The stupid highway. What's the name of the trail? It starts with an H. I can't even remember now. I'm going to Duncan Hell. But their mall there had a Woolworth and a Montgomery Ward on each side. One side was Woolworth. The other side was Montgomery Ward.
Woolworth?
Woolworth.
Never heard of that.
WOOL. Woolworths were like big in New York, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Eddie, I've never been in one if it makes you feel better. I've heard of it, but I've never been in one. Or at least if I have been, I have no memory of it.
That's as foreign to me as like a Rite Aid, which I
look up
was able to
Woolworth
get.
and see if they still exist.
It comes up, yeah.
Is there a Woolworth?
Oh, no. FW Woolworth Company ceased operations in July 1997.
Damn. Yeah, because they had stores in Duncan.
But there is a story.
Montgomery Wards are dead, right?
I guess it's on Amazon. Woolworth's online ordering systems have been disrupted and taken offline for the past 2 days. So, yeah, I guess they still do operate.
All right. I'm just trying to think. Obviously Monday we'll be back from Media Day. We'll have another podcast then to talk about all that. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we're going to be asking about. I will not. I mean, it's like we said, it's going to be kind of dumb because it's in the Star, it's on the field. But like, I watched the SEC Media Days today, and I just wanted to hit myself with a baseball bat repeatedly. I mean, Nick Saban is horrible to have to sit there, and then here's what sucks about covering Alabama is they're so good. There's really not. It takes away the type of questions you can ask. Like, everybody was asking. The stupid touchdownalabama.net guy asked about the right guard. Who was going to be the right guard?
That's peak media days.
That is, and we're talking about at the dais with the entire room full of national media. You're going to stand up. Of course, they're Touchdown Alabama magazine now. They used to be Touchdown, because everybody knows that the world of journalism is going from the internet to magazines.
He's gonna go ahead. He's gonna sit on that and put that in the August issue.
I'm just waiting for them to change to Touchdown Alabama the app.
Come out with it. Follow us on app.
Yeah.
Follow us on Twitter.
Go to the iTunes store.
God,
Google Play.
There's some people I
think Big 12 will be much more interesting than SEC Media Day.
There's so many new faces to the. I mean, it'll be different just in that Bob Stoops is not going to be there. Lincoln Riley's it's going to be interesting with him. Tom Herman's going to be interesting.
Will
like
OU
Gundy.
players feel free enough to talk more frank?
That'd be interesting.
Like Obo today defending Stephen Parker and Caleb Kelly for not being on the Big 12 team, will players feel more free to just say what they want now?
The bigger picture, I'm interested in that. I think they will, Carey. I think that's going to be. I think you're going to see some more honesty, but we'll see. What I want to know is Bob Bowlesby like getting in the middle of a Lincoln Riley and Tom Herman thing, like trying to get them revved up before they get to media day, so that they'll both just say something completely outlandish about the other one. Like try. Because the Big 12, let's face it, the Big 12's only hope is for OU and Texas to become elite again, like it was in the 2000s. Like that's got to happen.
They need
in the next couple
FSU
years.
Miami level hype.
Yes, exactly. They need that to be a big deal. Everybody in the country to watch, and the coaches to really be pretty honest that they just don't like each other. And I think if you made me guess, I would say Herman's more willing to play ball on that front than Lincoln. Like, I don't feel like Herman would have any shame in throwing a shot across the bow.
I think there's a chance with Herman because I don't know how you guys feel about this, but it is – you can feel like the Texas media as a whole – I don't want to single anybody out. And there are some really, fine and talented and professional journalists that cover University of Texas, but like on Twitter as a whole, it does kind of feel and has felt kind of like a glad fest. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, not at all. I think that it's pretty obvious.
I could see one of those glad fest crews going up to Tom Herman and asking him about beating Lincoln Riley last year at Houston, or asking him, what did you do to take away their run game last year, and what does that say about Lincoln Riley's inexperience or something?
There will be one question, I guarantee you, while Lincoln Riley's at the podium for the national media portion that gets brought up.
About getting beat by Herman
About
last
getting
year?
beat by Herman and how that will play into the OU-Texas rivalry. Or it'll be something along those lines.
I think that's a legitimate question, though.
No, I think it is.
It's just not the he, I'm going to get a rise out of...
It'll be depending on who asks the question, will be the most interesting part.
Yeah.
It'd be really funny is if... Didn't Switzer send Tom Osborne tacos during a coach's show one time?
I believe that's right.
Is that correct?
Because they were going to the Sun Bowl or something?
If I'm Lincoln Riley, I send a steak and water to be delivered while Tom Herman's on the on the podium. Have somebody dress up in a server's and then leave him a fake check.
Carey, I know you didn't want to call anybody out, but I'm going to go ahead and put my odds on Clarence Hill for that role.
Yeah, I could see that.
I honestly never noticed the guy until this spring. And then I was like, wow, this is a... And I don't know if he loves Texas or hates Oklahoma more. There's some middle ground in there somewhere.
And here's the thing. On the OU beat, we have homers. There's no doubt. But most of them aren't in it for that. Like, they're not in it to... drive controversy or stir shit up, and it's more about the really nuts and bolts, deep snapper backup kind of thing that they're after, or they just don't ask questions.
Well, and to be fair to him, he's a Cowboys beat guy, so I mean, like if he wants to throw his hat in that ring, whatever, that's fine. But there were times this spring when it felt like a concerted effort to get certain messages out of Austin.
Oh, yeah, I saw that too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was coming from every one of the guys that cover that beat. It was like they were having meetings with the staff or something. They said, hey, let's throw this out there about this. Because they would all of a sudden be saying the same things. And you really noticed it after the Ron Tatum commitment.
Yeah. Because that was like the big... I think that they wanted that to be a big splash.
And it was hard for any of them to step it back and say, well, that wasn't that big of a loss for Texas after that. Because,
it's funny how that turns all of a sudden.
Yeah, because they actually had to admit, yeah, it's not good that they lost that guy. And maybe that's because they're afraid of freezing cold takes or something. I don't know.
Well, it's probably whatever Tom Herman's wife told him to do at Bunko on Wednesdays.
Is that where they're?
That's their meeting spot. I've decided that it's their high school mom's Bunko tournament.
One of the things that rung to me, and I have fought, I try not to be a crazy subtweet guy on Twitter, but the one that drove me crazy is you saw all this stuff about, there's been all these references to OU, and their program and allowing all this stuff to go on. But yet, when the Reese Leotal thing happens and Texas decides to admit a guy that was dealing drugs in a high school,
the underage kids,
nobody said anything. That's a line we're okay with. That's fine, but this other stuff that was too much. Like, you can't, and that's when it's like, that's why I don't take you seriously when you rant about other stuff, is because it's more about an agenda than it is like, I care about this particular topic.
Well, and that is,
and I like Reese. Like, I don't want that to come out as like a shot on him, but he did what he did. Like, I mean, there's nobody denying what happened there.
Well, there were people that thought he was going to serve jail time.
Yes. Even like a week out, there were
literally a week
his
out.
Attorney, sounded like this could go real bad. And I don't know what changed so dramatically. And it's not that if the kid gets a second chance, I've got no problem with that. Like I said, I've dealt with him. He always seemed like a good kid. That's one of the more surprising stories I can remember. But at the same time, don't stand on your moral high horse, and then when that comes out, we're just going to act like that story didn't happen.
Both of the Reese Leotal arrest and the Will Sunderland arrest have both been like red flags in the last 6 months, 7 months to a year. That's like, I feel like I kind of know these kids growing up and watching them and interviewing them, going up to their schools and stuff, but you just never really know. And I guess that's just more of a blanket statement for recruiting in general.
Yeah.
And that's what scares about a guy like Joe Mixon. Is like, there's a really dark part of that kid.
Yeah.
And I would never stick my neck out for him. I mean,
it'd be hard to. And
you wonder, like, is that just part of who he is, and is it going to resurface again?
Be very interesting to see what the attendance is like at his football camp on July 22nd.
It's easier to have that conversation about Joe Mixon now that he's not here, now that he can't score touchdowns. I think OU fans are going to find it easier to have that discussion now. Stop being so damn defensive about what he did.
Oh, I think there's some people that will just never be able to see it through that because of the team that they subscribe to every Saturday.
You'll never be able to convince me that didn't play some part in Bob retiring either.
Just
having to deal with that shit for 3 years.
It's crazy that, I guess you don't really realize it when you're sitting in it and you're kind of covering it every day, but it is crazy to think that was 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years of that almost
nonstop
every day.
Yeah.
Something, somewhere, somebody saying something.
I mean, how many times did Bob Stoops sit at his desk and say, is this worth it? Because of that kid.
Probably quite a bit, but those questions are obviously easier to answer when he rips off an 85-yard touchdown to win the Big 12.
By the way, I've talked to some people just about, other things with Bob, because it was just so hard for people to wrap their minds around it. But Josh, I was kind of told that, and I think we all knew this, but that the way things have changed with recruiting was a really big part of why he didn't want to coach anymore.
Carey, I went back that day after it was actually the day after he announced, and I was driving home from that camp in Denton that OU did the following day, and I went and got online and listened to your Sports Animal interview you did with Bob. And you guys asked him about, Bob, do you think you're going to be on Twitter anymore? And he was like, no, I think I'm pretty much done with that. It's one of those things that just really stuck out to me, because if you asked Lincoln Riley, hey, you're going to retire tomorrow, you think you'd ever tweet again? I bet you money he'd tweet. It's such a different era, and everything's changed so dramatically. But people don't realize the same timeline from Bob Stoops' hiring, actually a longer timeline from Bob Stoops' hiring to when he resigned, it's a shorter period of time between Barry Switzer's resignation and Bob Stoops taking over the program. So that gives you an idea of how much things had changed in that amount of time. That was 17 years. It was a entirely different world of recruiting. Now when I take a vacation, I have to announce it. Back, 10 years ago, I was just gone in March, and that was just the way that was. No big deal, no harm, no foul. But now, man, I would have missed, 3 or 4 commitments. It just doesn't work like that anymore.
Bob's last tweet was when OU softball won the title. Hadn't tweeted since.
Really missed an opportunity to tag Natties for Patty in that, but I guess I'll talk to him about that next time I see him.
Next golf tournament?
Yeah, next time I see him.
Well, that's the thing. Monday is going to be the first time that Lincoln Riley publicly represents OU as the head coach in an official capacity. He's had a press conference, he's done media, but he has never had an event where he is representing OU as its head coach.
I joked about that on the board when he sent out a picture with Jordan Phillips' son.
Yeah.
I said it's now official. He's putting pictures with babies. That makes him the official Oklahoma head coach. But it's crazy that he doesn't have I wonder if the higher ups, and I know they're not worried about him saying something that he's not supposed to, but I wonder if they would have rather him had a kind of a buffering Sooner caravan at some point. Just to, I in a way, I would think that's kind of nerve wracking to have to go up there and do all that. But okay, this is a very small thing, but it shows you what it's like to have a new coach and to not have Bob Stoops, who controlled everything. Didn't do anything he didn't want to do. And the only things he did in terms of, he didn't do very much media because he didn't like it. He didn't even let us come to practice very much because he didn't like it. The recruiting stuff we know he wasn't a fan of, the tweeting, all that stuff. But, when Bob first, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but Bob first, in 2000, after they won, I was working for Sooners Illustrated. And the owner of Sooners Illustrated, or the president of Sooners Illustrated, his big thing was every summer he wanted to have something signed that they could sell to people, like a magazine. So, if I remember, I had to go over to Nate Hibble and Trent Smith's house after the Rose Bowl one year because they struck a deal that they would sign 5,000 copies of the Rose Bowl commemorative edition. But after the 2000 season, Bob actually agreed. Sooners Illustrated bought up 10,000 Orange Bowl programs that they had left over. And Bob agreed to sign 5,000 of them. And I don't know what we paid him, probably $20,000 or something. And I used to have some laying around. I've given them out to plumbers or something when they've come over through the years. I'm not going to pay you because
no, I paid them.
Here's a magazine.
I paid them, but when they're OU fans, they knew who I was. I just wanted to say, hey, I want you to have this. Go ahead, because you're a big OU fan. You probably like this, and I don't. I think I've said this before. I don't give a shit about autograph stuff. I just never have. So I think I have one of those left now that Bob Stoops signed. But that's the thing. Bob would do stuff like that when he was new to the job. He would never do that again, I don't think.
Nowadays,
if they had won a national
last year.
Yeah, he wasn't signing a bunch of magazines for, $20,000. He didn't care. But then he was making probably $900,000 a year or something. I don't know what he made in 2000. But before he won it, he was making $900,000. So, did you notice, in the long roundabout way, did you notice the tweet that Lincoln Riley sent out where he was urging fans to buy up these season tickets?
I did see that.
I saw that, and he's it is very Lane Kiffin-ish. You could tell he doesn't want to do that. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to be there, do that. But they made him. They can make him do stuff that they won't be able to make him do if he ever wins a national title.
And how much is that, though, also just him wanting to appease everybody? He doesn't want to, come in and be that guy.
Yeah.
It's we can't get him to do anything. He's being an asshole about everything.
Yeah. No, he'll do that stuff because, he just made $3 million. He just got a head coaching job. If Joe C wants him to jump, he's going to jump.
Yeah. He'll do everything short of shotgunning a.
But
beer.
It does kind of take some of the shine off of, like, it's almost like, if the big tough guy is out with his friends talking shit, and all of a sudden his wife shows up and he turns into a mouse. It's like, oh, you're not so tough now.
Yeah.
It's kind of that way with Lincoln. Like, oh, you're kind of.
You got to do it all.
You're kind of the head coach.
You're the
Oklahoma.
first-year head coach.
Bob wouldn't stand for that shit, but good for you.
I wonder if, I wonder if there's anything that we can do on Big 12 Media Days. I wonder if there's anything like different that he'll do.
Other
you guys
than just being nice, I don't know. Sorry, Josh.
No, you're fine. You guys talking about, stuff that Bob wouldn't do. One of the pictures that blew me away, and I think the Oklahoman pulled it out of their archives from like his first year when they took him out to Frontier City and he was in like the cowboy hat.
Yes.
That's the most amazing
photo
picture.
shoot, yeah.
That was awesome. But, Carey, you said something, and it kind of made me think, okay, so Bob didn't really like the recruiting game anymore. Bob didn't really like dealing with the media. I think we all know that. Bob didn't like dealing with the boosters because who the hell does like dealing with the boosters? It's a bunch of people that don't know what they're talking about telling you what to do. I mean, it's just not going to be fun. Like, that's not going to be – I don't think I've ever heard a coach be like, man, I love my boosters, at least in any common conversation. But so what did Bob like? What did he like about coaching anymore?
He liked coaching football. He liked preparing for games. He liked teaching people.
But yeah, I mean, you think about like as a head coach, how much of that does he get to do in a week?
Yeah, I mean, but that was Bob. He always remained a position coach for that very reason.
Yeah. But when you start thinking about it like that, you're like, okay, I can kind of see what he was doing there.
I mean, do you think Lincoln Riley loves sitting there telling fans, "Hey, Sooner fans,
No,
come sign up for tickets. We've got them." Like, no, he wants to be an offensive coordinator. He wants to go out there and throw the football around, have Lincoln Riley have Baker Mayfield be his quarterback, win football games, win championships. I mean, game days. I mean, that's what those guys live for.
You heard it here first, OU fans. Carey says that Lincoln Riley will now be throwing the ball at least 80% of the time.
They should take a just hard line approach to this and not do any advertising. Just be like, they're going to be playing. If you want to come.
Well, what was strange, we didn't talk about this, but what was strange about that ticket thing, and Eddie, for us, it's hard. We don't get a good feel for this because OU fans travel really well.
Yeah.
So every time we're on a road game, we see a ton of OU fans there. But to literally have to chop 1,000 tickets off of away games across the conference shows you nobody travels. Like, it's ridiculous how, like, this conference, it's just like, how many more ways can you just say, screw the Big 12? Like, that's a really big slap in the face.
Yeah.
We've been to TCU games where it looks like it's not even going to be half full when kickoff's getting ready to start. But it ends up being a good crowd. But there are a lot of OU fans at TCU games.
Lots.
I think and that's with Oklahoma coming in.
Yeah.
There's OU fans, obviously, a very strong program. They're going to travel anywhere. I don't think I can ever even in South Bend a couple years ago, I remember people saying that they were shocked. Like Notre Dame photographers and stuff were shocked at how many people were up there. That in Tennessee and Knoxville the last couple of years, that they were shocked how many OU fans traveled.
Yeah.
It's
fans
different.
love a big game too. Like,
yeah, they do.
Tallahassee.
I imagine it'll be like that this year in Columbus.
Will be crazy.
There will be a ton of OU fans going.
And I'm sure OU could be okay with that, knowing that, hey, our fans really care about the big games on the road. Like, we'll sell out. We don't like. They could probably get away with 1,000 less fans at Manhattan or so. But I mean, even in Manhattan, it's stocked full of red.
I have never seen a stadium. I think it's probably the Kansas game every year, and that might change with how David Beatty's doing.
It used to be going to Waco.
Yeah.
Now it's turned into when you go to Kansas, it's like the old Waco days.
That is a OU home game, more or less. Shit, there might be more OU students than Kansas students that travel up to Lawrence. Be right.
And it's an easy trip, but no, but that's a horrible sign for this conference. Because how many of those teams are, I'll tell you what's going to be interesting is attendance at Baylor games this year.
I thought it was kind of interesting that they only had one guy on the All-Big 12 team. I think that's kind of a change for the first time, or maybe a note in that Baylor is not Baylor anymore. The Art Briles Baylor, at least.
I'll tell you this: OU with Mike Stoops will kill Baylor because he loves playing teams that are going to, go big, put a tight end inline tight end, play action, throw. It's if it's what we're set. It seems like it's going to be. Baylor's going to have a real. They're in trouble. I don't know how much you've watched Rule when he was at Temple or paid attention to that, Josh. What type of offense he runs?
No, I did. Like I can think back to some of the games where I watched maybe a quarter or a half. He's going to be the guy that you hate, Carey. He's going to try to get physical, and he wants to, he'll put 8 guys in the, 8 in the box. He's not afraid to do double tight ends. He's going to do all of that stuff, and I am a huge fan of that in the Big 12 in the right situation. He's not going to have the personnel to overwhelm Oklahoma or Texas or do those sort of things. It's just not going to happen.
It'll be a lot of 3 and outs.
Yes. Now, at Oklahoma or Texas, that would be like an atom bomb to the conference to have to deal with. They've got better personnel, and they're going to manhandle us too because we're light at every position because everybody else runs spread. I think that would be crazy if you had the right guy to do it at OU or Texas. But otherwise, that's why the spread became so popular, because it evens out the fact that only the elite programs have elite offensive and defensive linemen.
Can you imagine just putting Paul Thompson at quarterback at Oklahoma right now? Just reliving that 2006 season? Because that offensive line would literally kill everyone. Oklahoma's. If they were lining up double tights and just running that style of offense right now, they would win the conference. I believe that.
Oh, I do too. Because you're not talking about, it's not just about, well, they were really good. But all of a sudden, you've got, these massive NFL offensive linemen not blocking the guys of 2006. They're blocking 280-pound defensive tackles or, 225-pound defensive ends that are just pure pass rushers. Let those guys get their hands on those guys. By the third quarter, those teams are just going to walk off the field. It's just over.
Not to mention, you could almost put together 2 lines that are about as good as anybody else's.
Oh, yeah. We've talked about it a ton. The depth, I don't think this is the best unit we've seen at OU, but I think this is the best depth, especially when you then throw in the recruiting class that's still coming in the 18 group. It's the best depth I've seen at OU since Bob Stoops arrived. It's like Switzer era talent and depth. There are a lot of NFL guys that won't start this year.
Is that the biggest reason why you can, project OU as a favorite in the Big 12 this year? Just because, there's so much turnover, even with Lincoln Riley coming in as his first year. That's when you have a strong offensive line like that, it's hard not to think that there's not going to be holes opened and guys blocked for Baker Mayfield.
I'll make a prediction for you. If OU wins the Big 12 and the Big 12 championship, Glenn Spencer will be fired at OSU.
Ooh.
Because I've said this many times. 2 years ago, you could have easily made an argument that he was the best defensive coordinator in the league.
Yeah.
But the way that they have trailed off at the end of the season the last 2 years has got to have people pulling their hair out in Stillwater. That defense just collapsed at the end of last year, even with Vincent Taylor healthy.
The thing about Oklahoma State defensively is they have just been, I don't want to say lucky, because when you force so many turnovers like they have,
they're opportunistic. Yeah,
it's been very, very opportunistic, and it just seems like they always have a guy when there's a ball tipped in the air right there. So I don't know if that, you can't really blame Glenn Spencer for that. I guess you have to credit him for coaching him up and putting him in position, but at the same time, when they haven't been able to create turnovers or force turnovers, it's been a suspect defense. I mean, I remember driving to Morgantown last year when TCU just ran up and down the field and just could never get the ball in the end zone. They'd stumble over themselves.
Yeah.
And that ended up being an ass kicking anyways, but go ahead, Josh. I've rambled on.
Oh no, you're fine. God, sorry. I got to reading the thread on the board. I'm a little sidetracked at the moment.
No, we were just talking about if OSU doesn't win it, that Spencer will be the guy that pays for it.
You know, I guess I'm torn on it because I like Glenn Spencer, and I think he's improved that defense, but there's clearly a goal Oklahoma State has in mind, and he's not getting them there. I mean, that defense is not making the jump, and like you said, they've trailed off a couple of years in a row, and I don't know how anyone thinks this defense this year is going to be better. I mean, they lost almost all of their key pieces. Now,
Vincent Taylor, Jordan Stearns, I mean, those were their two best players.
Vincent Taylor was a really good player. I don't think people recognize that enough, and that kind of goes into my every year OU fans get wound up like, oh, this is the year for Oklahoma State. This is the year where I don't understand it. I do not understand all the OSU's a dark horse playoff team. OSU may lose 3 games this year. Like, pretty easily could lose 3 games this year. I like Mason Rudolph. I like James Washington. And then I see an offensive line that couldn't move Oklahoma at all last year, a running back group that doesn't have any difference maker that I've seen. And I'm supposed to get excited about that in a defense that's going to have to be rebuilt. Like I don't understand it.
What hurts them is I think they're 2 tight ends, Zach Veach and who was the other guy that they had?
What was his name?
Connor Jarwin or was Blake Jarwin?
Blake Jarwin.
Blake Jarwin.
So I think they lost both of those guys, didn't they? But that was
Blake Jarwin, yes.
That was why they became a good running team, because they went to that diamond package with those 2 in the backfield, and that's what opened up their running game. I mean, and they got really good with that after it was over. I don't know if they have any big athletes to replace them.
Yeah, they lost both of those guys. Veach definitely graduated last year. So, I mean, and again, I mean, that's what I'm like. And I said they didn't run the ball particularly well against Oklahoma, and Oklahoma wasn't a particularly dominant front. We all expect them to be better in that better up front this year than they were last year. So I know you've got to go to Stillwater, and that makes it more complicated. But I just don't understand it, especially when there's been so many times when it seemed like Rudolph was ready to kind of make that leap, and then he faces Oklahoma and just doesn't do anything.
That was the weirdest.
I don't know at what point you don't kind of jump off that train.
Yeah, that was the weirdest game I've ever seen him play last year. It was bizarre.
Yeah, he's a good player, but he's been now the first 2 years ago, you know, he was injured. You have to acknowledge that. But last year, I mean, everything was there. OU secondary was shaky at best, and he was awful.
Which was weird because, I mean, it was rain and he can't throw the ball. The first game he ever played was at Baylor in the rain, and he was fantastic.
Threw it like a madman.
Yeah.
Down there. That was, I mean, when Oklahoma State sat on the ball with a minute and a half left before the half, could have gone in up by 2 scores at halftime. OU won the game.
Yeah.
That's when they won the game last year.
That was really weird. All right, well, I think that'll probably do it for this podcast. Guys, I appreciate the time as always. We'll be back next week with a much more meaty podcast, especially as far as the team news goes.
Real football.
Real football is going to be discussed on Monday by the Sooners in Dallas. So Eddie and I will be down there covering it all for you. John Shin's going to be joining us, who will be making his last hurrah at Sooner Scoop. I know we've all kind of been in and out, but it's kind of a strange deal. John actually got a really good job. He's going to be working for the Cox outfit, still going to be covering OU. We'll remain good friends. But it was an opportunity that he couldn't pass up, and so he's going to take that job, and we're parting friends as always. But he'll be down there helping us out with Big 12 Media Days, but for the last time. So it's back to Eddie and Carey crewing it up.
2 quick things.
Sure.
Baseball hires probably going to be announced at some point this week. I mean, it's happened. They just haven't been announced formally. Clay Van Hook from Rice is going to come in as an assistant, as well as Clay Overcash, who ran the Tulsa Sandlot baseball program, big-time high school outfit out of Tulsa. He's been a scout
I saw something
18
about
years.
them needing to find somebody else today.
Yeah, the thank you to Clay Overcash ended with Boomer, so I don't think there's any doubt where he's going.
Yeah.
And also, I think I'm going to try and get out to basketball practice tomorrow before they go out to Australia.
I'll go over there
Heard
with
some good
Check it
reports out of Trey Young. Sounds like Christian James has changed his body, gotten pretty big.
Gonna get a shot to go through the hoop.
He's going to need to. So they're going to Australia and New Zealand on August 3rd. And I've actually heard that Matt Freeman has had a really good summer. So
good.
We will be checking in on them. Carry on.
All right, Josh, any last words on the recruiting front? Anything to watch out for?
Well, I think probably the one thing that I can confirm at this point is that Oklahoma is going to host linebacker offer Jacob Mangum-Farrar, kind of a rangy guy from the Houston area. He'll come up this weekend. Spoke to him a little bit about it yesterday, kind of waiting to really talk with him a little bit more before I go too far with it. But he's very interested, coming up, I believe, with his dad, and is a guy that Oklahoma has taken a shine to, picked up a lot of offers in the spring, and I think is kind of one of those guys that could kind of start the run at linebacker. I don't know that he'll commit this weekend, but I wouldn't rule it out either, just because Oklahoma is pretty clearly kind of his most major offer. So a decision's at least possible on him this weekend.
And now we just wait to see 2019 starts the build, basically.
I mean, they have their quarterback, and to his credit, Spencer Rattler has been really active on Twitter. So I think that's always a good sign when your quarterback is kind of heading up the charge.
All right, Josh, thanks a lot. Eddie, thanks a lot. Thanks to everybody for listening. You can download us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud. So we'll get all that information out there for you. If you're listening for the first time, make sure you go and subscribe to us on either iTunes, Stitcher, whatever your Android device, podcast device may be. Go ahead and give us a rating as well if you get a moment to do that after listening to the show. So thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks to you guys. We'll be back next week after Big 12 Media Days for our next edition of the Unofficial 40.